Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the Neurodiversity Media Network. I am Briar Harvey, and I am joined today with Melissa and Beth for our review of A Knight's Tale for movies and Munchies. And I'm very excited about this one because, like, we were talking about it before I hit the button. So clearly we have many things to say. All right. So if you have not seen this one yet, I'm going to give you my chat GPT summary. A Knight's Tale is a medieval adventure film released in 2001, set in the 14th century. Jesus H. Christ. It tells the story of a young peasant named William Thatcher who dreams of becoming a knight. When his master dies, William takes his place as a knight and competes in jousting tournaments under the false identity of Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein, which, like, you'd think they'd have recognized, right? Like, just the name alone.
Yeah.
Kind of, that name's a mouthful.
With his loyal companions Roland, Watt, and Geoffrey Chaucer. He didn't mention Chaucer. He rises through the ranks, captures the attention of a noble woman named Jocelyn, and faces various challenges and rivalries along the way. I mean, that's how you want to call it. The film combines medieval action, romance, and humor to portray William's journey of self-discovery and his pursuit of a dream that defies social conventions. I would absolutely not have watched that movie. ChatGPT is fired.
Terrible.
Fired.
There's no heart. There's no there's no talking about like Chaucer being naked.
Right. So I'm not even really sure where we start with this movie. Came out in 2001 with a budget of $65 million. It made 117 at the box office, which is considered a commercial success. It doubled its money. I don't think people at the time quite got it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Because the tomato meter score is 59%. But Roger Ebert, who was also ahead of his time, gave it 3 out of 4 stars.
That's pretty good.
Recognizing it, I do think, for what it actually is. So in the show notes, I'll include this YouTube video I watched a couple of weeks ago, but it really broke down the differences between modernist film, postmodernist film, and meta-modernism. And if there was like an eponymous meta-modernist classic, the most recent would be Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? But we can go back farther. I think Being John Malkovich is another example of exemplary metamodernism.
Apparently, I love metamodernism.
You do. I do. Most of us do.
Yes.
And I'll tell you why. So in modernist film, you got the hero who moves through exposition to have a thing happen. Recently, that's Top Gun 2, right? Top Gun was an exemplary example of modernist film the first time, and it was the second time around too. There aren't really any surprises here.
Yeah.
We know what we're getting into. We're getting into a movie with good guys and bad guys, and that is what we are after with modernist film. So postmodernism, probably the best example of that is Tarantino. Pulp Fiction right? The idea is that we're playing with the concept of film, and you, the viewer, are in on the joke. Sometimes to the extent that we break the fourth wall and we actually have conversations, right? The problem is metamodernism or postmodernism is well, it's gritty and it's dark and it paints the world as, I mean, it's Christopher Nolan. It is Inception. It is his whole Batman universe, right? You
Yeah.
can't fucking see anything. The music is loud.
Yeah.
Postmodernism is gritty and dark and very aware of the delicate nature of life, which is great. But
Which
that's
I
the
feel like
world,
we're all way too aware of now.
right? Because that's the world we actually live in right now, basically. And I don't want my art to imitate life quite that way.
No, I'm looking
So,
for more of an escape now.
exactly. So we've taken it to the next level, which has become metamodernism. And it is the idea that there can be happy endings, that it is not all as grim and dark as it should be.
Yeah.
And I truly think it had been many years, probably 2 decades, since I had watched this film. And I remembered it being fun and kind of just a short romp. And I watched it again this morning and I went, oh, wow, this film is actually really ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Like, these guys were doing things in terms of the work that just so predates. I mean, it was 2001. It came out, I can't remember because it came in second to something else that was a sequel. Please hold. Have to go look it up again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like the Knights, like, I mean, there are so many of those elements that are coming back, and people, it's like when you hear a teenager talk to you about, like, oh my God, I just heard this band, they're called Metallica, and and you're like, do not cite the old words to me, child.
Right.
But it feels like that lately.
I did. I had a student once, one of my high schoolers, say, "Have you heard of this band Metallica?" Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
So it came in second behind A Mummy Returns, which, I mean, I'll give you Brendan Fraser, right?
Yeah,
But that is
perfectly good.
a modernist classic, The Mummies, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
exactly what
Mhm.
you expect a modernist movie to be.
A good
So,
example of a modernist movie too. Like,
Yeah.
well done.
and this movie, like, obviously there's a happy ending. Obviously we get to be a knight. Like, those things aren't even really in question.
Yeah.
Right.
The audience is in on this story, as this is exactly predictable in the way that we want it to be. We want you to get to have the happy ending because we want to look at all of these other elements.
Mm-hmm.
This film was deliberately anachronistic. So let's talk about some of these historical anachronisms that, like, didn't happen in the 15th century.
I mean, like, the one that sticks out the most to me is the ballroom scene, right? Like, that's the one that I think of when I think of a teenager talking to me about Metallica, where I'm like, okay, but yes, Bridgerton is wonderful, and I love Bridgerton for many of the same reasons. but like they are not the first people to make a dance scene with modern music and like Victorian Edwardian like dances. Like
Honey,
what
have
period
you
are they?
seen Moulin
Regency dances.
Rouge?
Yeah, exactly. Like this is not new. Baz Luhrmann has been doing this for like really long time, y'all.
Like probably more years than I have been alive, Buzz has been playing this game.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Like if one of my life goals, but it can't be fulfilled, is to see La Boheme staged by Baz Luhrmann. Like, and I don't know if anybody has a recording of that anywhere, but like La Boheme is my favorite opera, and Baz Luhrmann directing it, like, I don't know. Anyway,
From your lips to God's ears, because boy would I watch that. I recently Spotify suggested to me, like the good theater kid that I am, the Broadway Moulin Rouge soundtrack, which I don't know if you've listened to it. So, I mean, they made a
it's been a
musical
while.
out of it, but this is recent, so all of the mashups are different.
Ooh.
Like, and from a musical standpoint, I actually really enjoyed it, but it was very derivative, and it missed the magic. Right, the spark of the original was not there in any way, and I think that is, I appreciate the ways in which the kids are recreating my heyday. It's delightful to me, except for the lowrider pants, right?
Right.
Beth
We
and I were
talked about
talking
that. Those
about
are
that.
bad. They're no good. No good.
I can't wear the hipsters anymore.
Nope. It's I was pulling them up all over my butt for like long enough as a teenager. I do not want to do that anymore. I don't want to do it.
Exposing my G-string. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, the whale tail.
Jesus, right?
I mean, that's like the entire reason that a tramp stamp originally was begat.
Yes.
Like
yes. Because you could see
low
it
riders.
Pants were falling down.
If your
Because
low-rise jeans and your overplucked eyebrows that you then drew on with a pencil,
and that never grew back.
I'm missing.
Did they eventually grow back?
They did. They did. They did actually. But although I got 2 this time, so I'll take it because there was really only 1 beforehand.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
now.
Same.
I've always had like Brooke Shield brows, right? Like Levy brow. There's
Levy brow.
He has some good brows though.
The
a really good brow
right here.
Levy brow, right there. And I think that this movie had that magic in it. Right? Like, so I don't want to talk too much about Heath. It'll just get depressing.
It's just really sad.
And I was just so viscerally reminded of how he threw himself into everything, physically, bodily, like.
Yeah, outstanding. Just an outstanding performance, every single thing he did.
Yeah, I mean,
probably autistic, he was so good at mimicking.
Everything I ever saw him in, he was amazing in.
And this movie was like, it's not about jousting. It's about movies that are about jousting.
Yeah. It's about like the perfect love story, like the perfect knights and in shining armor love story combined with like the poor kid who never had a chance.
And which allows that poor kid who never had a chance storyline to really kind of shine here. We got to, I mean, this would never have happened. Culturally, historically, none of this would have actually happened. They would literally have probably executed him. Forget the stocks. They would have killed him for this kind of fraud. Fraud, because it was fraud. And so the pardon from the prince, like, brilliant. I'd forgotten actually that was James Purefoy until I saw it again. I was like, oh wow! I look at the cast in this movie. All of these people who went on:
outrageous.
Paul Bettany, Alan Tudyk, like Mark Addy. All of them, really. And let's not forget about Rufus. I guess everyone except for the girl, which
she was what was it? Like, when I was reading about like the casting on this, like she was like a model and like a friend of somebody and just kind of randomly got cast. It was like hey, you seem like you fit that part.
And I think like the most important thing for the plot, right, was that whoever played that part had to be gorgeous. Like she had to be stunning, because it's written like into several parts of the script where everyone is commenting on how gorgeous she is. And that was probably the most important qualifier.
Yeah.
Shannon Sossamon is her name, and she did do some other mostly romance type films after this. 40 Days and 40 Nights, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, The Holiday, right? So she got unfortunately typecast into this role, which, as we all know, happens much more easily for women than it does for men in Hollywood. And that is just a fact.
Or if men are typecast, they're typecast in a way that is beneficial to them.
I can think of a few, although, you know, speaking of the Mummy, Brendan Fraser rather got spit up and chewed up and spit out by Hollywood, and The Whale is probably a little problematic, but his comeback has been rather gratifying to watch. So
I still have not seen The Whale, but I will, just to make sure that I see it. Read some reviews. Not super excited about it, but I am glad that he's back.
I read some things that made me not really want to watch it, but I'm gonna.
Because we do movies here. That's what we do. And the point of film has always been to make us think about things, to tell stories, and to bring us home in a way that we get to have bigger visions. So, what's the message here, y'all?
The message of this movie?
Yes, the message of this movie.
I think it's just like a really hopeful message. I think it's just it's that, I don't know, Prince and the Pauper isn't quite right, but like that sort of.
I think it's just like sometimes things do work out and sometimes things are okay. Because like, you know, we do kind of live in this hellscape of a world where things are not working out and things are very hard and things seem very dark. And I think movies like this give us that message that, things are hard, but sometimes things are okay too. Sometimes things work out for the best.
Yeah, and sometimes you meet a world famous author naked on the road, and
That's
that's okay
correct.
too.
Occasionally, I keep waiting for one day when that happens to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a naked Paul Bettany. Why would you not
Exactly.
want it?
Like
Right?
before, okay, so the reason I proposed this movie in the first place was because it just popped up on Netflix. And I was just like, oh my God, I haven't seen that in forever. And like watched it immediately because it was one of my favorites when I was a kid. And it just, I don't know, like I definitely forgot that Bettany was in it. And like I feel like probably what year was this? 2002, 2001. Um
2001.
Preteen, early teen me probably did really appreciate that he was naked in the road, but
100%.
also like I definitely forgot about that too. I think I like vaguely knew, but also I don't know. But that that character, like I was reading some interviews about him being cast in that too, and it was just this sort the thing I love about movies is like the collaborative effort of them and
Hmm.
how it can be kind of flat on paper, or it's just kind of a throwaway piece maybe, and like he comes in and he delivers the line in such a way that they're just like, oh my God, like we didn't know it could be that good, but now it's
Right.
perfect. And like
Right.
and like he brought the lightness to the movie where it could have gotten really heavy in certain points, and he brought the Joker like aura.
Oh,
Hmm.
absolutely. And it was 100% in his announcing and storytelling, right? His heraldry is what we call that. It's an actual skill.
Oh yeah,
And
it's the hype man. He's the original hype man.
Yeah.
this movie was actually written about Chaucer, who apparently went missing during 1372. Was gone for 6 months, bumming around, I guess, Europe, which is when he later wrote Canterbury Tales. So this was the tongue-in-cheek attempt to figure out what
What
Geoffrey
happened?
Chaucer was doing
Where he'd
when he
been.
went on the road for 6 months.
That's
And
wonderful.
I love that, right? Like,
That's like
I
a time
love,
honored tradition. A writer just fucking around for like
yes.
6 months to a year, at least, like on the road. Um,
Right. I mean, there's a
and
reason that like Kerouacking is a
yeah,
verb, right?
yeah,
And
it is,
I
let's be
do,
clear, mostly men who get to do this, but
sure, sure. The women have a very serious timetable. But, in that first scene, where they meet Geoffrey Chaucer and he says, you've probably read my book. And they're like, nope,
no.
absolutely not. And, you wonder, like, in that time, in their rank, they probably couldn't read.
No, most likely.
yeah,
There's a very good chance they couldn't read.
yep.
Hmm.
Like I went on I don't know how I missed that particular piece, probably because I was like entrenched in like researching the anachronisms of like very specific parts of the movie, like the recipes, but like I somehow missed that part. But it makes it make a lot of sense, right? And I went on a whole tangent of trying to figure out like, okay, what exactly is a tansy cake? What is a like what did they mean by dilled veal balls and squash fritters? Because was squash even in Europe at this time? It was not.
It was
Um,
not. Nor with the turkey legs that were visibly prominent at a number of places in this film.
they were fully like, you know what, guys? We're just gonna cosplay like a Red Fest and film it. That's what we're doing, because we just want.
So my bestie Heather is Scottish, and she sends me pictures last weekend of the joust, which, of course, takes place on an actual fucking castle lawn, right? Like there's castle in the background because it's Scotland and they've just got
They're
castle.
just all over.
Like,
The
and I'm
place is
looking at
lousy.
it like this is incredible, and none of this happens here. I have been to dozens of Renfests in my life, and ain't none of that what I was seeing in these pictures. It was truly delightful, because when they do the joust, they actually have full-size jousting fields. When we do the joust, it's a little place. I mean, horse can't even get up to a jog.
Yeah, it's maybe the size of the football field, maybe. But yeah, we in America have to construct a back lot basically to have a Renfest, and then that back lot just kind of sits there the rest of the year. Maybe some LARPers utilize it, but like it just kind of hangs out until the next year's like Renfest.
I mean, I grew up in Colorado, so I went to Larkspur, which is truly probably one of the best Renaissance fairs in the country. And when I compare it to these pictures that Heather sent me, I'm like, oh,
Wow.
I understand now. And she's like, well, you can come and visit. I'm like, I guess I'm visiting in jousting season.
Yeah.
I mean, now let's be real. They are Scottish, and they still take throwing rocks at each other still very seriously.
That's a real sport.
Oh, it's I'm not fucking joking. It's a real sport that they put effort and training. Oh my God, yes, into throwing big boulders at each other. This is an actual thing.
I'm going to have to dig into that.
Yes.
I mean, it's like what's his name from Game of Thrones? The mountain from Game of Thrones is an actual, like, he does that. He does that as a thing.
Okay.
He also, bodybuilding, weightlifting, but like.
If you've never watched a strongman contest.
Yeah.
A significant number of them are Scottish, because this is just what they do. They throw big giant boulders around at each other and like tires, and it's
bodies have that ancestral memory of throwing rocks towards the English.
I mean, bless them. They should try again anytime.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sounds like they were doing CrossFit before anybody else.
Exactly.
There you go. Exactly.
See, I could get down with that CrossFit. Like, that feels more useful. Like, show me how to kick a boulder at the English when they are invading. That feels more applicable to my everyday life.
Your Highland genetics are potentially showing here, Melissa.
Possibly.
I'm mostly Scottish and Irish, so that's probably true.
I feel like that's, trust me, it's genetic. It's once it's in the blood, you're just throwing rocks at each other. I say, as the mother of rock throwers, because it's not in my blood, but it sure as hell is in theirs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So, what did you come up with in terms of recipes for this one?
So this one, I looked into tansy cakes a lot, trying to figure out if this was a thing that I should make. Eventually decided no. It's fine if you are a historical food nerd and want to try it. Like, I am glad that I tried it, but if you're a historical food nerd, that's probably the only reason that you would do this. Because it's just, there is a certain level of like the way that tastes have changed over time. And I don't think that it's going to be a super beloved flavor profile or texture profile. for most modern people. It could be fine. And again, we're kind of, okay, so the thing about recipes from that era is they're very hard to find and they are very much not detailed. Recipes from
No,
the
it
14th
was.
are intuitive, right? Like they're talking, if we think, this is like a whole thing for me, is like recipes in general are talking about things as though there is a common language. There is a common understanding of ingredients, of general recipes like that you use for other things. And they're like, well, just
Base
make it like you would,
preparations, right?
yeah, like make it like you would make biscuits and whatever, which is not how you make tansy cakes. A tansy cake, from what I can gather, is most similar to an omelet and like sort of a bready omelet. So interesting, right? And also tansy is an herb that is poisonous. So don't eat them.
I feel like I'm on Reddit, the plant identification subreddit, which has this bot that don't eat it. Don't eat it. Like every time somebody says food or edible, the bot comes around and says, "Don't eat it." We're telling you, don't eat tansy cakes.
Don't eat tansy.
Extremely poisonous. It's not like kill you on the first try poisonous, right? Like unless you're maybe immunocompromised or like a child or the elderly. But
then there had to have been some good psychoactive effects, right? Do you have any idea? No?
It was a common herb and people kind of liked that bitterness. It's bitter, apparently. I haven't personally tried it because
it's poison.
Yeah. Sure. It doesn't grow in my backyard. So it was just a very common herb, and it also, they would like mash it up to make it sort of green, like make the cake omelet situation sort of green, which sure, you can make your omelet green. It was food coloring. So you can coloring.
So spinach frittata. That's what you're telling me. Rather than a tansy cake, I should just go make myself a spinach frittata and it will be fine.
Yep.
Great. Perfect.
Well, spinach frittata sounds delicious.
Right. And then in the movie they were talking about tansy cakes with mint cream. Did try it, and it is better. Like I used spinach actually in my attempts, and spinach and dill to get that sort of green and flavor, and did pair it with some mint cream, and it was better. It's still like, it's nothing to write home about. It's not bad, it's just fine. But the recipe that I did end up with was dilled veal balls. Veal. I'm not going to find veal. So I
can afford it these days, even if you could. Jesus.
Yeah, so I looked for the best replacements, and that seems to be ground chicken or ground turkey. So I just used I believe it was like a 78% lean ground turkey, and made meatballs with sort of medieval spice profile, which is kind of a sweet, like normally what we would think of as a sweet spice profile, with like coriander, cinnamon, nutmeg, and dill like on the side. Like I basically made kofta, which are a Greek meatball, because in researching the origin of meatballs, kofta seems to be the earliest written version of that we can find. So I basically made a slightly different kofta with a tzatziki sauce, and you can serve this as an appetizer, or you can make it into a meal by, just getting some pita bread and some lettuce and tomato and making a gyro with, kofta instead of gyro meat.
So let's talk about shaping, because traditionally kofta is like hot dog, finger shaped, right?
Yeah, and which is why this is like Kafka-esque. So,
Try it again. Try it again. No,
changing
say it again.
into in this recipe. Okay,
Say it again. It's what? It's what esque? Say it again.
Kofta. It's Kofta-esque, and it is a ball shape because dilled veal balls instead of
Sure.
just
Sure.
kofta.
Dilled veal
So yeah,
fingers.
I made it into meatballs and fried those. Pretty basic, pretty easy. Like, you just kind of mix everything together, make meatballs, and cook them. And yeah, it's just like, it's kind of an easy like snack or appetizer to go with your movie viewing, or just an easy weeknight dinner if you just want to watch with family. Even my children ate them.
Ooh. Oh, well, see, that's the thing you should lead with.
Yeah,
My children ate these.
We're
They
making
weren't.
those this week.
They didn't go back to seconds, but they did eat them.
Okay, listen.
That's like a 2.5 on the
Right.
scale of like,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm very excited. They won't eat my children won't eat the tzatziki, but I will. And
I would put tzatziki on everything.
everything. I actually think I'm going to have to go look, because it's not my garden. I'm just the interloper and the vegetable consumer. But I do believe there might be cucumbers. If not this week, next week, I'm going to have real homegrown cucumbers. So exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all ever eat tzatziki sauce with cucumbers and just feel a little bit like the gingerbread man in the gingerbread house in the
No, I've never had tzatziki with cucumber slices, and now I feel obliged to do that, because obviously, I mean, you may as well.
conveyance for
Right.
your mouth.
Am I made of house, or is house made of me? So those recipes are linked.
Yeah, they're going to be linked in the show notes. Should be. I will eventually have my website up and able to go to that forever.
Listen, this is why you are here with me.
I tried. I'm trying again this next week. I'm gonna work on it.
I will eventually also have all of the recipes posted in the show notes with the episodes.
Yep.
And we are doing what are we doing? Oh, Starship Troopers. That is what we are going to be doing next episode.
Very excited about the recipe for Starship Troopers, because if you remember, in the movie, they are in the chow hall at one point, and one can only assume that they are eating protein paste. It's like pink and pasty and gooey and
delicious.
Yum.
We're gonna make that, but actually delicious.
I'm looking forward to it, because I am dubious and skeptical at best. Now, I'm probably gonna have to start. I don't know. I'm a terrible food photographer. I've tried many times, but I feel obliged to actually start making some of these recipes and photographing my poor attempts and seeing what happens. We'll make a whole thing. Have hashtags. People can post them on threads, because clearly we don't know what we're doing on that particular
We're
network.
figuring it out. Everybody's figuring it out together.
We're all in this together.
All right.
High School Musical.
Final thoughts, friends. Anything else about this movie that sticks out to you that you want to make sure that we get on record so that you don't come back an hour and a half from now and think, oh, I wish I'd said this? Like, that never happens to me, ever. Ever.
Let's
It's
see.
it's kind of irritating to me when you read the Chat GP synopsis that the female blacksmith isn't mentioned even one time.
Of course not. Why would we mention the female blacksmith?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Watts is mentioned, and his only role appears to be to fight people.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
not the lady blacksmith.
His loyal companions, Roland, Watt, and Jeffrey. Again, we didn't mention that it was Jeffrey Chaucer, but we also didn't mention her, and she shows up fairly shortly after Chaucer does, frankly.
Yep.
And she
By the way,
saves
that
the
is
day.
right.
Yep.
Laura Frazier as Kate. Let's see. Laura.
And also that I have not read any fanfic of A Knight's Tale yet, but if I go searching, I'm going to need Kate to end up.
I've lost you.
So you broke up on that one. Who do you want Kate with?
I want Kate with the female lead. Like, they belong together.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm kind of okay with you shipping that. Yeah. So she is apparently, oh, okay. Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad. She's the executive that Gus is dealing with at that. Right. I didn't even recognize her. That would be Laura Frazier.
Bettany was in this. So, like,
I forgot Alan Tudyk was in it.
It's been 20 years.
It's been 20 years. And again, we did not, because this movie was just a little bit before its time, it did not get recognized or taken seriously as an actual critical piece of work. It was treated as a very cutesy one-off romance story. And I'm sad for it because it deserved better.
Yeah. It was just a truly brilliant movie, honestly. Like,
I think it got labeled as a rom-com and people moved on.
And I now watching it again, I'm like, oh man, we missed this. We all slept on this movie.
That was like a really good era of rom-coms too. Like that whole era.
It really was.
Of You've Got Mail, A Knight's Tale. Like, I know there were so many others.
Like 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yes.
Everything Sandra Bullock did at that point in time, pretty much. Like, there was absolutely a rom-com era, and I feel like we owe at least one show to the early aughts rom-com. May it rest in peace, because it did not survive. And I've read several think pieces about this and what happened to it after, but we structurally in film now do not do romance the way that we used to. And there are statistically significantly fewer sex scenes and even on-screen kisses than there were 20 years ago. A lot of that has to do with Marvel and the number of like those kinds of films that have taken over. Right. So there's no romance. But even so, the more mainstream romantic comedies, they're no longer theater worthy, which means we're not paying for them at all.
Yeah.
So this was a golden era of rom-com, and I don't even like rom-coms,
I
but
love rom-com. But it's
I
because
love
of that
them.
era. It's because I grew up in that era. And like I was the perfect age for all of those. Like You've Got Mail is my favorite movie ever. Like
I
and that was what, 94,
yeah.
95 probably, Sleepless in
Yeah.
Seattle, all of those movies. I mean, it was just
Nora Ephron,
I love rom-coms. They're like rom-coms are just comfort food
they are. It's the same
because
reason I love Hallmark movies.
right. Like you know what's going to happen. You know how it's going to end. And the pleasure is in the journey to get there and there are no surprises.
Yeah.
It's just comforting and it ends happily.
In the journey, and especially in the quippiness. It's like it's
Right.
the same reason why we like, even though I have issues with her, Amy Sherman Palladino, Gilmore
Hmm.
Girls, we love the quippy. Like we
Right.
love the fast paced, like one-liners and just riffing off of one another. And rom-coms tend to have like those peaks and valleys of that.
Right.
Just makes it really enjoyable and like a really nice escape for an hour and a half. They're also not very long. That is
Right.
another
no,
bonus.
although this one was
Yeah.
over 2 hours,
It was.
but
It was
can't
quite a bit
you
longer than I
can't lose
remembered it
out on the
being.
joust scenes. And I think that's what, in terms of rom-coms that men will see, this was
Yeah.
actually that, right?
Yeah.
Because there was enough action, there was enough on-screen masculinity to be
Mhm.
able to make it a good crossover
Yeah.
for both gendered audiences. And we're also struggling with that at this point in
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah. I mean, we are. It's really difficult. The things that people gender these days, that it's just like, okay, but that, like, why does that even have to have a gender? Like, why? Like,
Right.
does everything have to have a gender now? Like, I am non-binary and I don't even want everything to have a gender. Like,
So I think that's where we'll end today. It is July 11th. The next time we record, we will be able to give you the over under on opening weekend of Barbenheimer, y'all. So I would like for you both to pick your winner. Who is going to be the victor of Barbenheimer weekend? Will it be Barbie or will it be Oppenheimer? Because this is the most gendered question. Like, uh, like you couldn't have asked for a better. Is it Barbie?
yeah.
Or is it Oppenheimer? And I'm going to be honest with you, I will likely see both, and probably both opening weekend, because I've been very excited for both of these movies for a very long time.
I mean, I kind of want to see Barbie, but I also kind of want to see my favorite gay aunt on screen, Cillian
Yeah.
Murphy. He's perfect. And I love him.
I mean, and it's Nolan, and there will be explosions and
Hmm.
violence, and I mean, it'll be a good time. And then there is Margot Robbie as, like, man, have you seen the Barbie fashion show in the
Yes.
last few weeks? It's been
She's
absolutely
killing it.
Yeah,
spectacular. She
it's
looks
amazing.
just, she is Barbie. It is so, so
Yes.
good. I'm
Like
so excited.
the joy that that is giving, like so many like adult women and like people who grew up with a very specific Barbie as their favorite. Like it is providing so much joy getting to see that in real life.
Yep. All right. Any guesses? Who's gonna win?
I'm gonna guess Barbie.
Okay.
It just seems more commercially like popular. Like, so I mean, yeah.
Okay. Beth.
I have to agree. I think it's going to be Barbie, even
Okay.
though I will myself would probably enjoy Oppenheimer better. I think Barbie's going to win.
In terms of commercial take, I am 100% sure that Barbie is gonna knock Oppenheimer out of the water.
Yeah.
I just don't know by how much, but it's gonna be a sight to see. And honestly, I don't feel bad about it either. Right? Like,
So, I mean, Oppenheimer
amazing.
was gonna win some Oscars. Like, you just know. I haven't even seen it yet, and I
Right.
know.
Right. It's going to be nominated. They're going to make the rounds for it. It's going to be great. And that it maybe loses commercially to Barbie just makes my little heart a little bit joyful, if I'm
Yeah.
being very honest about it.
Yeah.
So, we will be back in 2 weeks with Starship Troopers and our over under on Barbenheimer weekend. And we will see you all then. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you are not a subscriber to the Neurodiversity Media Network, then what are you waiting for? You get access to all of our back catalog, plus all of the recipes and all of our master classes for everything else that we've been teaching over the last 6 months. You should get over there and join us. We'll see y'all next time.